Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a joystick. More than anything else, I'm going to be using a design sketch on that joystick in order to control the basic size and shape of our model. So let's go ahead and take a look at it and see what this is going to be doing. So we have our right design sketch over here. It's on the right plane. And what we have in here are all the elements to help define the basic shape and size of our joystick. And why do we want to do this? Why do we want to put all this together into one sketch? And the reason for that is it gives us the capacity in one sketch to be able to make small modifications to our design, such as this angle or maybe this dimension over here, in order to modify this design in order to get it to look the way we want it to look. For instance, if we were to change that maybe from 60 to 50, and that may not be exactly what we want to do, but maybe we want to make a change to 30 and maybe make this in a little bit. And maybe bring this one into a little bit too, so we don't always have, so it isn't sticking out as far. And of course, that 61-inch dimension may not be very good either, but as you make modifications to this, very easily, in just one sketch, like a one-stop shopping here, you can go ahead and create a design that's very stable and updates relatively quickly. So I'm going to do a Control-Z a couple times to get that back to where it was before, so you can actually see what it was like before. And now you can see what we're starting with. So that's the advantage of a design sketch. Gives you the capacity to make all the different features that we have associated with it, kind of link those all together. And so when we make small changes to the design sketch, it makes changes to all the other parts that are associated with it, and the updates are quick and easy. Okay, so while we're doing this, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be consulting with a drawing that we have put together. It's kind of a checklist of the different sketch elements that are going to go inside of that sketch. And we're going to bring this back and forth as we go through our design. I'm going to show you how to put this together. So initially we're going to be creating that design sketch, and we're going to be creating our guide curves off that design sketch for the different loft features we're going to be creating, both in the front and the back. And then we're going to go ahead and put in our profiles. First, a profile is going to be a very simple circle. Then we're going to put in a profile that's going to kind of emulate the way the hand goes around it. So the hand's going to go around in the back over here. Fingers are going to wrap around the side and kind of nest in this area. 3 different profiles over here, and then the profile gets a little bit steeper over here in order to accommodate the hand. And then the very top of the joystick is going to have a profile like that, just a regular like a slot in a way. And now we're going to be consulting a drawing in here too, as we have seen in our class. So you might want to get this out too, but I'm going to give you a moment to take a look at that. We're going to go through all these different steps in here in order to put this all together. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our basic template file, millimeter gram second, 2 units after the decimal would be good. I chose a plastic part PA type 6. May not necessarily be appropriate for this, but we're going to go ahead and select that anyways. And we're going to start in the right plane. We're going to sketch everything on the right plane. So we're going to start with right plane. We're going to click on that, go to sketch, and then we're going to begin to sketch out some of the sketch elements that we see in this drawing over here. So the list over here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting in a horizontal and vertical center line, midpoint relationship on the bottom, midpoint relationship in this line over here too. We're going to make that 3 millimeters. It's going to be 70 wide. And then we're going to put in this box up here that's going to be 10 tall in millimeters. 13 from that point over here. We want to make sure we put in this diagonal line over here. And it's not going to go to the origin. It's going to go from this point over here. Then it's going to be 32 wide on the top. So we're going to keep that in mind as we put this together. So we're going to start with a sketch. We're going to start with a center line. We're going to go ahead and pick up the origin, at least that witness line to the origin. And we're going to click on this. We're going to select the midpoint of that and go right to the origin. And we're going to make that coincident. Now we're going to go ahead and scoot out a little bit. We're going to put in a center line, just going to go north from that. And we're going to put another center line in here. We're going to exaggerate that a little bit. We're going to right click on it, select midpoint. We're going to make that coincident with that center line in here to make sure we have that relationship. Now we're going to put in our first dimension. So this dimension is going to be between a line and a line. We're going to make that 3 millimeters. So didn't give me a chance to change it. We're going to double click it and make that 3. Yeah, so there we go. And now we're going to cap the ends of this. Actually, let's put in that 70 millimeter dimension next. So we're going to go ahead and drop that in place. Type in 70. Here, take the bottom center line. We're going to scoot that out a little bit more so it gets off our model. Let's put that 70 up here a little bit so we can see what we're doing there. We're going to cap the ends of this line down here on this end and the other end. And we want to make sure we have a center line for that. So, and to get into that dimension again, or that line again, all we have to do is press the Enter key. And there we have that. So now we're going to put in our diagonal line. So we have a diagonal line which is going to go from This intersection down here, we can pick up that midpoint, kind of sketch that out. Smart dimension between that diagonal line and the vertical center line, we're going to make that 10 degrees. And we could change that dimension here too, and it's going to make our joystick rotate too. It's going to take on a little bit different form, but we're going to get all of our sketch geometry in here first. So now we're going to put in some center lines. We're going to start a center line in here on the bottom and kind of go across the top, over here like that, and bring that back down. And we actually want to make sure that these center lines go all the way down to the bottom. So all the dimensions are going to be to that bottom center line, that horizontal center line that goes right through our origin. So this dimension over here, and let's double click on that again. I accidentally closed that out, but let's go ahead and double click on that sketch relation. And yeah, let's go back into our sketch 1 and continue to define it. So smart dimension, this is going to be 32 on the top. We're going to deliberately put a point in here. It's going to be on the horizontal line and with the intersection sketch relation that we see. We're going to put it on that diagonal line too. And we're going to put a dimension between that point and that line. Don't put a dimension between a point and a point. That's not favorable. And we're going to make this one 13. And then the height of this is going to be very simply just 10. So what we're doing in here is we can see the bottom of the joystick. This is going to be the circular bottom down here, the base of it. And it's going to transition into a guide curve that's going to kind of go up in the front and the back. It's going to have a different shape in both ways. And what we're doing here is we're building geometry in the sketch model in order to define where the guide curves are going to go, because the guide curves are going to help us define the lofts that we're going to put together in this. So now we're going to go back to this image over here and take a look at this. So we're going to go ahead and continue to build this. We're going to take this 45 by 38 by 15, 3 different sketch lines in here, center lines we're going to be putting in there, construction geometry. Then this one over here, 3714 by 85, and then 40 by 61 by 95. And finally this one on the top, 60 by 40 by 125. And we're going to put that in, and after that we're going to put in our guide curves. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start from the bottom. We're going to go to the center line. We're going to sketch this up, over, and back down again. We're going to exaggerate just a little bit and just put that off the model. And this dimension over here is going to be 45, so we're going to make that 45 tall. And going across is going to be 38. So put a dimension on that. We're going to make that 38. And now we want to go ahead and stretch this over here. And we're going to put a point over here between these two. So we're going to pick up the intersection, sketch relation, and then finally a dimension between that point and that line, between line and point. It's important here. We're going to make that 15. So we're going to bring our dimensions over here a little bit, kind of keep them organized, and put this one off to the side. Now we're going to do the next one. So this one up, that one over, this one back down again. Make sure that's vertical, and now we're going to put our dimension set on this one too. So we're going to take these lines over here, we're going to stretch this up a little bit. So we have plenty of room. And this dimension over here is going to be 85. This dimension across the top is going to be, looks like 37. And now we're going to scoot that over here. We're going to put a point in here like we did before. We want to make sure we put that point over here on that diagonal line. And remember a dimension between that point and that vertical line. And we're going to make that 14. So we're going to bring this dimension over here just so we can see what it looks like on our drawing. And we're going to take that 85 millimeter dimension and drag that off over here. Okay, some more. Let's put a center line in here, down here from that bottom center line. We're going to make that go up, over, and back down again. Kind of exaggerate that a little bit. I want to make sure you don't pick up any other sketch relations in here that you may not necessarily want. So you got to be careful how you place these lines. This coincident relationship, don't want that, so we're going to get rid of that. Pull these lines up over here and kind of get those out of the way a little bit, kind of give us plenty of room. Now we're going to make this 95 millimeters tall. So I'll make that 95. Then this dimension off the top, we're going to put that one in at 95. That one's going to be 61. So again, just like we did before, we're going to go ahead and drag that off over here. We're going to take our point, going to force it in right here. Get the intersection command, sketch relation between that point and this line. We're going to make that, looks like 40. Yeah, looks like 40. So essentially this is what we're doing here. What we just put in is going to be this series of lines. So that vertical line, that horizontal line, this vertical line over here, which is going to be 95, 60 across, 40 from that point in order to give the offset. Now we have that sketch, those sketch elements in place. So this last one is going to be the last one we're going to put in. Again, a starter line. We're going to start down here. We're going to sketch that up and over, and then back down again. Exaggerate that a little bit. This is going to be 125. And just to organize that a little bit, we want to make sure we put that 95 millimeter dimension right there. We're going to make this 125. And across, we're going to put that dimension in there. As you can see, going across that is going to be 60. And then, oh, these aren't connected, so let's go ahead and drag that and put that back over here. And then we're going to put a point in here, just like it did before. Kind of get that intersection, sketch relation, and between this point and that line, not a point to point, but we're going to make that 40 millimeters too. So there we have it. We have that in place, and yeah, it looks like this drawing. We might want to put in this one last dimension, which is going to be 133. We're going to put in a horizontal center line going across over here. Put that in there. It's going to find the very top of the form that we're going to be creating for our joystick. So we're going to pull this down a little bit. Pull that one down. Go back over here to center line. We're going to sketch this over. Arbitrary length, because remember center line. If it's if the line itself, but not the endpoints of the line are actually defined, then it'll be fully defined. At least the sketch will be. The SolidWorks will consider it fully defined. But we're going to make that 133. And there's our sketch. So make sure you save your model, and we're going to come back and we're going to add our guide curves. Okay, so let's clean up our sketch a little bit. Let's organize our dimensions, kind of put those close to each other. Let's take this dimension over here so the dimension lines aren't crossing. It's just a little bit easier to read. And you can double check your work too by looking at these dimensions over here and see if they match the image that we have that's available for the class. So I think that's, that works out okay. So we're going to go into step 3. In step 3, we're going to put in our guide curves. We're going to put the guide curves in the front and in the back. Then we're going to go ahead and finish those guide curves by putting an arc on the front over here, this line in the back, and then that diagonal line in the back over there too. So this one's going to go on the top, and that one's going to go in the back. So let's go do that. And what you want to do, style spline works really, really well for this. So we're going to go ahead and start at this point over here. We're going to add a point over here, point down here, and then we're going to end it down here. So you got to be careful with the style spline. You want to start in this point, so we're going to have a coincident relationship over here, but everywhere you see a point over here, you don't want to click on that point because that's where the control points are going to be for the style spline. You want to get it close, but not quite there. So we're going to click it over there, click that one over here, and we want to make sure that while you're doing this, you're not picking up other sketch relations along the way. When you're all done, this is going to be coincident down here, coincident up here. What you want to do is you want to take these control points in here. You're going to make that coincident. And you're going to take a point up here on the curve itself from the sketch toolbar. You want to take a sketch point, and you're going to go ahead and click on that sketch point and that vertex in here. You're going to make that coincident. So you notice this coincident point over here is coincident to that line, but this point on the curve itself is going to be coincident right to that point. That's exactly where you want the guide curve to go, because we're going to have our profiles, which are going to be right there too. So you want to make sure the profiles are right where the guide curve is going to be. So same thing down here. We're going to take this point, which kind of got stretched up a little bit, click on that line. We're going to make that coincident. Point up here, put that on the curve itself, take that point over here, put that on the end point of that line. We're going to make that coincident. So now we have these control points which are connected by center lines kind of stretching out a bit. So this one kind of got moved down a little bit. We're going to take that and be careful not to pick up any other sketch relations. Take that point in this line. We're going to make that coincident. And then again, back to a point. We're going to put a point in the curve arbitrarily in a location over there. And then click on that end point of that line over here, which is where the profile is going to go. And now we have that first guide curve in place. So now we're going to do the same thing in the back. So this time we're going to start at the top. We're going to start at this point down here and go ahead and pick up these points. Again, being careful not to pick up any sketch relations along the way. So we're going to click on this. Kind of a point there, kind of a point over here. Maybe a point there, close to that point, and then one down here. And finally, we're going to terminate this one down here. Coincident relationship. So while we're down here, we're going to take this point up the line. We're going to make that coincident. Point, put that on the curve, take that point, bring that down here to this intersection down here, that end point. You're going to put that there. So this point over here, we're going to take that point in that line. We're going to make that coincident. put a point on the curve itself, and put that in the end point of that line over here. We're going to make that coincident. So these things are kind of jumping around a little bit. But by the time we get to the end, it's going to be fully defined. So we're going to take that point over here, that horizontal line, we're going to make that coincident. We're going to take this point over here, we're going to put that in a curve in an arbitrary location, but it's going to get lined up when we hit the end point of that, line up here. And now you can see that stretching out even more. And then one final one, we have this point over here and this line over here. We're going to make that coincident. And finally a point on that curve to that point over here. We're going to make that coincident, and bang, everything turns black. It's fully defined, and now it's almost ready to go. So let's go ahead and finish our guide curves. We don't need to style a spline for that, but the next thing we're going to put together is going to be a 3-point arc. So we're going to start here, go over here, kind of stretch that out a little bit. I think the dimension on that is going to be 22, so we're going to type in 22 on that, and we're going to go from this point to this point up here, and then back down to that point. That's going to help finish that out. So what that's doing, there's a little pony line. You'll notice that with a pony line, you're not going to be able to get that fully defined. If you're too quick with the mouse, you're going to get these pony lines every now and then. You need to make sure you get those taken care of. So we're sketch 1. We're going to go ahead and rename that. We're going to call that our right design sketch. Make sure you save your model, and then we're going to come back, and we're actually going to be doing a convert entities with the on-edge sketch relation on yet another sketch, borrowing the geometry that you just created for the guide curves. Okay, so let's do more. Let's go ahead and bring in our drawing, give you a chance to look at that briefly. We did our step 1 and step 2 by putting in a series of those lines and those endpoints of those lines to find where the guideline or guide curves are going to be for the style spline. And we added a style spline in sketch step number 3. Then step number 4, on the right plane, we're going to go ahead and do convert entities from the right design sketch in order to create the front guide curve. And then in step 5, we're going to do the same thing, and that's going to be for the back. So we want to take our sketch over here. We want to go ahead and rebuild it. So we already renamed that. Now we're going to go to our right plane. We're going to go up here to sketch. You have to click on that sketch button, go to convert entities. And now we're going to convert the entities for the front guide curve. So we're going to pick those two elements in there, that arc and that curve, and go to the green check mark and then rebuild. So we're going to call this our front guide. And we're going to do the same thing in the back. So right plane, sketch, convert entities, click on this guy and that guy. We're going to ignore that top diagonal line up here. And now we're going to go ahead and then go to the green check mark. And that's going to be our guide back. So go ahead and rebuild that. And we're going to call that our back guide. So back guide or back guide curve would be good. Okay, so you might be asking, like, why do we create two different guide curves in here? Well, SolidWorks kind of looks for one guide curve for the front of the model, one for the back of the model. Sometimes we'll look for the ones on the side, too. That helps define your model a little bit better, too. If it's a little bit bulgy on the side, you have the capacity to be able to define how the contours work out that way. So that's why we chose to, and the nice thing about that is when we right-click on our design sketch and hide it, we still got the guide curves here. And when we put in our plans, which is going to be our next step, and we put in our profiles, we have these guide curves back here that we can play with that are really simple. If we had the design sketch in the background, we have all sorts of stuff that's going to be associated with that, and it may not necessarily be desirable. So we're going to go ahead and show that, and we're going to go ahead and put in planes next. So for our guide curves, we're going to go ahead and keep those active. But for the planes, we're going to go ahead and start putting in planes in here. So now we have a top plane, which is this line over here is residing right on top of that. But we're going to create a top plane 0, top plane 1, top plane 2, which is going to be in that horizontal line, top plane 3, top plane 4. We're going to ignore this horizontal line. We're going to make that top plane 5. It's going to be on each one of these planes that we're going to be sketching out a profile. So that's going to be our next step. And if you take a look at our drawing that we're playing with here, this is going to be step number 6. If you want to take a look at that, profile planes, insert a profile plane in each horizontal line in the design sketch, numbered in order from the bottom. So the first one is going to be top plane 0, as I mentioned, and all the way up to top plane 5. So let's do that. An easy thing to do is just select the elements that we need in our modeling area and in the feature flyout or the feature tree. So we're going to click on top plane, that horizontal line. Now we're going to go over here to features and go to plane. It's going to like default to perpendicular, but we're going to make that parallel. Go to the green check mark, and now we're going to go ahead and rename that. So it's going to be top plane 0. Just type in top on top of that, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and borrow that name. We're going to go ahead and use that a number of different times. So again, we're going to go back to our model. We're going to go ahead and click on this line, top plane, reference geometry plane, parallel, green check mark, rename that top plane 1. So again, this thing, that thing, we're going to go over here to reference geometry. We're going to go choose plane. We're going to make that parallel, green check mark, and rename. So we're going to do that a few more times. We have 2 more times we're going to do that. We're going to call that top plane 2. And top plane 3 is going to be over here. We're going to choose this line, that plane, reference geometry plane, make that parallel, green check mark, rename. So this goes together actually pretty quickly. We're going to put a lot of effort right now into our design sketch and our profile sketches too. And by the time we get to the point where we're putting together our lofts, it's going to be an easy task to do. So let's go ahead and keep doing that. We're going to go ahead and click on this line. And again, top plane, reference geometry plane. We're going to make that parallel to, go to the green check mark and call that top plane 4. And the size one is going to be a little bit different. So kind of be like a top plane, but we're going to go ahead and click on this line up here. It's going to be at an oblique angle. And we're going to go over here to reference geometry. We're going to go to plane, and we're going to click our second reference. It's not going to be the top plane. It's going to be the right plane. This time we are going to accept the default setting of perpendicular. So now it's really perpendicular to the right plane. But it's going to have that angle right in that line, so it's exactly what we need. We're going to go to the green check mark over here. We're going to call that top plane 5. Okay, so now we have our profile planes in place. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our profile. Okay, so we've gotten our profile planes in. That was step number 6. We're looking at step number 7 here. Create the profile sketch O, a 70 millimeter circle on the top plane itself. So we're going to start at the very bottom. We're going to go ahead and put in our 70 millimeter circle down here. So if you think about this, we already have that defined. We already have a 70 millimeter dimension between that point and this point in here. So we can go ahead and just borrow that geometry in here. So let's do that. Let's go to our top plane. Let's go to sketch, go to circle. Let's make ourselves normal to the screen. Start at the origin down here. You can see a lot of clutter associated with that, but let's go ahead and click any origin. Let's turn the model over a little bit too. We're going to be doing this a number of times as we put our profiles together. And we're going to go ahead and click on that circle and that point. We're going to make that coincident, and that should be 70 millimeters. And to confirm that, if you click on that circle itself, we're going to get that 70 millimeter dimension. We're going to make that driven, so it's driven by the geometry they have in there, and that's black and it's fully defined. So we're going to call this our profile. Let's see. It's going to be profile sketch 0. So we're going to call that profile and then sketch 0. Okay, so time for some more profiles. We already have our circular profile in here. On our top plane 1, we're going to go ahead and put in this profile. The way we're going to do this is we're going to turn off our design sketch in the background because we already have the planes created and we have our guide curves. We want to make sure we see those. And we're going to make sure that this portion of this arc down here is going to be planted right on the guide curve. Because you need to make sure your profiles intersect the guide curves and vice versa in order to get the lofts to work with the guide curves. So we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. We're going to do that on the bottom. We're going to do the same thing on top. And as I mentioned in the last last segment, we're going to create one profile. Now we're going to create more than that. We're actually going to be creating 5 altogether. So that's what we want to do. The way we're going to do this is we're going to put in this arc on the bottom. We're going to create a symmetric relationship from one side to the other. We're going to put in a vertical line. We're going to put a vertical line over here, put a 27 millimeter dimension between the two. And we're going to try to get this defined on the very bottom before we move on. Of course, we want to make sure that we have a coincident relationship or a pierce relationship between a point on that curve and the the geometry that's in the background, which is going to be our front guide curve. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to our top plane 1. We're going to go ahead and sketch this out. But let's turn off our design sketch. Let's just like not see that. And we're going to take our planes. We're going to turn those off too. Kind of reduce the clutter in our model. But we can see what we're doing here. I mean, this is going to be our top plane. What we want to do is we want to go to the top plane 0. And we're going to go ahead and put in our first profile other than that circular profile. Okay, so I think I did this in error because what we really want to do for that circle is we don't want to put that on the top plane. We really want to put that on a different plane. So what happens when you put your profile on the wrong plane? Well, that's pretty easy to do. Because these are going to have a relationship with existing model geometry in here, we can go ahead and change that plane. So you can see it's actually on the top plane, but we want to put that sketch profile on a different plane. We're going to put that on top plane O instead of the top plane itself. So we're going to go ahead and click on that top plane, go over here to the feature flyout. We're going to go to top plane O. It's going to move that up a little bit and then go to the green check mark. Now we have that in place. So now it's going to be continuous. So we're going to take our profile sketch 0, we're going to right click on that, and we're going to hide that. So now we're going to go to top plane 1. Now we're going to put in that seemingly complicated sketch that we have here for that. So if we go down here and pick up that, we're going to be sketching this out. So remember our parameters in here, 27 millimeters wide, arc along the bottom, 2 vertical lines in here, model lines in here. And we're going to put in this rest of that geometry here in just a bit, but we want to make sure it intersects the guide curve down here. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to put in. We're going to go ahead and click on top plane. We're going to go up here to sketch, initiate sketch, and then we're going to go ahead and do the 3-point arc. Kind of rotate that around a little bit. We don't necessarily need to have that exactly where we want it to be. We don't need to have it completely normal. But when we put that in, we want to make sure it's near that guide curve, which it is. It's pretty darn close. So now we're going to go normal to it. We're going to put a center line down the middle of this thing so we can create some symmetry. So we're going to go ahead and click up, pick on, kind of exaggerate that, but put it right on top of the origin so we can pick up that coincident relationship in here. Then we're going to go ahead and put a point on this. And actually, let's take that point and pick the midpoint of that curve, which you can see over here. And we're going to make those coincident to each other. So now we're going to take this point, I'm going to rotate this a little bit. We're going to go ahead and pick our guide curve over here, and we're going to make that, we're going to pierce that. So that point, guide curve, pierce. Then we're going to take this point, that center line, that point over here. We're going to make that symmetric, so whatever we do on one side, it does it on the other side. We're going to put in a couple model lines. It's going to go vertical from that. If we pick up that vertical relationship, we want to make sure that we have a tangent relationship in here too. And now we're going to put in our dimensions. So we're going to put a dimension between this line and that line, or you can put a diameter dimension on that curve down there, on that arc. And we're going to make that 27 millimeters. So it's black. It's fully defined so far. Let's go ahead and put in that arc on the top. I think that might be a little bit easier. So it's going to be a 45 millimeter arc on the top. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to exaggerate that a little bit and kind of put that off to the side. So it's really free now. It's not constrained by anything, but we're going to do something very similar to that we did in the bottom. We're going to make that 45 millimeters. Kind of move that way off over here, but let's go ahead and drag that down a little bit and make sure we don't, it's just getting further and further away. Where is that thing? So if you lost it here, press the F key. And you know what? That's just too far away. Let's just try that one more time. Let's get a little bit closer. Go back to 3-point arc. Let's go ahead and sketch that out in here. Put our dimension on that. In fact, let's just nail this down a bit. Let's go ahead and put a line, or a point on that line, on that arc. Take that point and the guide curve that's in the background, and let's go ahead and pierce that. Now let's put our dimension on that. So a lot of this freeform sketching could be a little tricky sometime. So we're going to make that 45. And we're going to pull that over here a little bit like that. We want to make sure that the center of this arc is going to be in the center line. So there's the center of that. Let's go ahead and put that on that center line, that vertical center line. We're going to make that coincident. So now that looks like it's fully defined except for the endpoints. Now it's good. So we can go ahead and drag that over here a little bit. So let's go to tangent arc. Let's go ahead and finish this up a little bit. We're going to create a 2 millimeter arc over here. And then that's going to come down here like that. And take these two endpoints. Let's go ahead and merge those. There we go. Let's go ahead and pull that out a little bit. Let's make sure that these are tangent. And now we can dimension this a little bit. We're going to make this 1/6. this arc too. And double check your tangent relationships. You'd have tangent relationships between every line and arc in this. So now we're going to put in a vertical center line. We're going to put that in over here, like that. Take that vertical center line and that arc. We're going to make that tangent. And now we're going to put in a dimension between that line and this line. We want to make sure that that other line in there is vertical when we do that. And this line is going to be 15. So everything's black, is fully defined except for these endpoints of these lines. We can go up here to sketch fillet. We're going to make sure that this is going to be 12. We're going to go ahead and click on this arc and that arc to finish that up. Right click on the mouse, and we get that in place. And looks like it's fully defined. So we're going to go to the green check mark over here, and we're going to call this profile sketch 1. So I'm going to go ahead and borrow this name up here, and that's going to be it's going to be on our top plane 1. So we're going to try to coordinate that in that respect. So profile sketch 1 is going to be on top plane number 1, and we're going to do the same thing for the other 4 or 5 profiles we're going to create. Okay, so I went ahead and took the liberty of creating my profile sketch 2. If we take a look at that, it's very similar to the profile sketch 1. But you want to make sure that each one of these profiles has got that 27-inch offset in there, or 27-inch diameter in that bottom arc. So let's go ahead and take a look at what else we need to do. We created a profile 2. We're going to do profile 3, which is going to be even more so. So this is profile 2. This is one we just created. And this one's a little bit more exaggerated, so that kind of like the finger hold in here, that little cave in here for the fingers, it's going to get a little bit more pronounced higher up the joystick that you go. So very similar geometry. Let's just go ahead and do that right now. We're going to go ahead and rebuild this one. And we're going to take that sketch and we're going to go ahead and hide it. So, it's like not in the way. So now we're going to go to our top plane 3. And we're going to go to sketch. So initiate sketch. And then we're going to go to arc. And we're going to get that arc just like it did before the past 2 times. We're going to get that close to our guide curve. Kind of drop that into place. We're going to take a point, put that in the midpoint on that. We're going to take that point and that guide curve. And we're going to make that, we're going to pierce that. So now we're going to take these, we need to have that center line in there, so let's go ahead and make that normal too. Let's go ahead and put a center line right down the middle so we can take advantage of the symmetry. And as long as we're right on top of the origin or right below the origin, it's going to pick that up. And so now we're going to pick up a symmetric relationship between these points and that line. We're going to make that symmetric so it doesn't get away from us. Let's go ahead and pull that up a little bit, kind of get it so it's almost going vertical there. Put in one line on one side, make that tangent. Then we're going to take this line over here and that line over here, and that middle line, we're going to make that, we're going to mirror that to the other side. As an opposition to doing these 2 lines in here, we could do a diameter in this. We're just going to go ahead and click that out here for now. Go to leaders. You want to make sure we do diameter in that. Now we're going to make that 21. Right? I think it's 27 actually. Yeah, so it's going to be 27. So we'll make that 27. So let's go ahead and highlight everything. We'll make that 27. Now we're going to do the same thing at the top. We're going to put in that arc in the top. So we've done that a couple times. We're going to go ahead and sketch that out. We're going to put a point in there on that arc. And we're going to take that point and the guide curve over here. We're going to make that, we're going to pierce that. And we're going to put a dimension on that. We're going to make that 45. So a little bit smaller. Let's find the midpoint of that arc in there, which is going to be here. Let's go ahead and take that and put that on that center line, make that coincidence. So now the top of the arc, or that arc on the top, is now going to be fully defined. So we kind of have like 2 end caps down here that will help fully define the rest of our sketch. And we can go ahead and pull that down here too. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in a couple different arcs in here. We're going to put in our 6mm arc over here, followed by the 2mm arc that kind of wraps around that corner. So let's go ahead and do that. We could do tangent arc at this one, probably be a good one. So let's go around the corner like that. That'll be our 6mm one. Then our 2mm one over here. Let's go ahead and stop that there. And then let's put in some dimensions. We're going to make that 6. Make this 2. Take this point and this point. Let's go ahead and merge those together. Now let's go ahead and pull this down just a little bit so we can get something that would be close to being tangent over here. I'll click on these 2. That'll be tangent. Let's take that vertical line down over here and just make that vertical center line, and take that line and this arc over here. We're going to make that tangent. Now we're going to put a dimension between this center line over here and that line. And if you take a look at our image over here, see what that needs to be. Let's go ahead and pull this down. Looks like it's going to be, for this one, it's going to be 23. So we're going to put that in there, and that'll help set that aside for a bit. So a little bit more than the 20 for the last one. We'll make that 23, kind of sticks that out there. And then the last thing is going to be our, and this endpoint of that line over here too, by the way, is coincident with that. So that's not going to move, but it will move once we put in our fillet. So we're going to put in our fillet. Remember, it's the value that we had before. We're going to put that in there. Now, it says that it's, there's something about the geometry down here with that fixed point already. It's going to go ahead and correct that for us. We press yes. So it's going to extend that line up here in order to make that fillet work. So we're going to go to yes, right-click on the mouse, and now it doesn't look like it's fully defined. So let's go ahead and see what we need to do. So I think just maybe a tangent relationship over here would work, and maybe a vertical relationship in that line will work. But there's our next profile. So that's going to be Profile Sketch 3. So let's go ahead and borrow this name. And we're going to try to keep this organized. We're going to paste that name in here. We're going to make that Profile Sketch 3. Okay, so we have 2 more profiles yet to go. These are going to be like slots. We're actually not going to use the slot tool because it kind of limits us in a way. So we're just going to have to sketch this out the old-fashioned way. We're going to initiate it the very same way we did it over here. We're going to go ahead and put that arc here in the bottom, put the arc in the top, connect it with some lines. We're going to make that 35 millimeters wide for this one, so the top part of that of the joystick is going to be a little bit wider. So we're going to take our Profile Sketch 3. We're going to hide that for now. We're going to pick our top plane 4 and go to Sketch. And let's start with the 3-point arc and kind of sketch that out and see where we're at with that. So we're going to sketch that out over here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of move that around a little bit. And let's go ahead and put a point in here. Let's go ahead and put that where it should be, which is going to be right where that guide curve is going to be. And we're going to go ahead and make that intersect. So actually, let's take this and maybe the midpoint, let's go ahead and make that coincident too. Just kind of keep it symmetrical. So we're going to go, you could choose this portion of the guide curve or that portion of the guide curve, or even make it coincident with that point. So either one would work. So let's go ahead and just be consistent. We'll click on the bottom portion of the guide curve. We're going to pierce that. Now let's go normal to the screen. Let's go ahead and take a center line and put that right down the middle again. So pick up that witness line as we put that down here. Now we have that in place. So we're going to create a symmetric relationship between these 2 points and that center line. Let's go ahead and put in like a line on one side. Let's go ahead and fully define that. We're going to make that tangent. We're going to make this vertical. And we're going to take that line over here and this line over here, the center line in here. We're going to go ahead and mirror that over. So now we have that in place. So let's go ahead and put a dimension between this line and that line. It's going to be 35, so we're less than half of that. But there we go. Now we have that in place. So that looks a little bit better. So let's go ahead and move this aside over here. Let's go ahead and put that arc in on the top, 3-point arc. So 1, 2, 3 over here. Let's take a point, put that in the middle of that, and let's take that point and define that to the guide curve that we have in the background. We're going to make that pierce. So now we're going to take these 2 endpoints, we're going to connect those together, and all we have to do is make a tangent on one side. I don't know if it's going to give us an error if a tangent on the other side. It doesn't look like it will, but remember that's kind of redundant. You may not like that. So with only one dimension in here defining this and the relationship with the guide curve, we have that in place. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. And we're going to call that our profile sketch number 4. And make sure you save your work. Alrighty then, so we're almost done with all of our profile sketches. We're soon going to be creating our lofts here, which would be kind of fun. So let's take our profile sketch 4, and let's go ahead and hide that. And we're going to go to our top plane 5, and we're going to go ahead and sketch on that. So it's going to be a little bit different. Because this is at an angle, our orientation is going to be a little bit different. But we're going to do something very similar that we did on the top plane 4 for the profile sketch 4. We're going to do something very similar to that. So we're going to select on that. We're going to go over here to 3-point arc. Go ahead and sketch this out. Kind of like what we did before. And we're going to put a point in here. We're going to put that right in the middle. So now we're going to take this point and that arc, or even that line over here. But if you take the arc, we're going to be consistent with everything else. We're going to pierce that. Let's go and put a center line down here, right down the middle. Let's make sure we're normal to that. So this is where it's going to be a little goofed up. It's going to have a different orientation. But still, everything's kind of whole in here, too. So we're going to take that point, that center line. We're going to make that symmetric. And we're going to make this normal so we can see what we're doing. We're going to take that, we're going to make that horizontal. Yeah, there we go. So whatever we do on one side gets done on the other. So it's going to put in some lines in here. Let's take that line, we're going to make that tangent. This line and that center line, we're going to make that, we're going to mirror that actually over to the other side. Put a dimension between these two, we're going to make that 35. That should be black and almost fully defined, except for the endpoints of those lines. So again, just like we did before, we're going to go ahead and sketch this out, and we're going to create a relationship with our guide curves. We're going to go ahead and click on, actually we're going to put a point right at the midpoint of that, which is going to be right there. We're going to take that point and that line over here, we're going to pierce that. Then we're going to take these endpoints over here, and this line over here, let's go ahead and connect these together. Let's go ahead and make that tangent. And the same thing over here. We're going to drag that over here. Oh, it's not going to like that. Not liking it. So we must have a relationship in here that we didn't realize. So let's go ahead and take that tangent relationship off and see if we can repair that. And let's take these 2 points and we're going to merge those together. Okay, so now if we make that tangent, at least on one side, now it's going to be fully defined. So now we have that last profile in here. We have it profiled on the top. That's going to be the orientation we've been looking at from the right plane. So we're going to go ahead and borrow that sketch profile 4, borrow that name, we're going to apply it to this one, and we're going to call that 5. And since it's undefined, no, it looks like it's fully defined, we're going to go ahead and rebuild that, and we're going to hide this too like the other one. So next step is to create our lofts. We're going to start from the bottom and just work our way up to the top. And fun thing about creating a lofts in here is we're just going to be making all of our selections out here of the feature manager tree. This is the reason why we numbered them the way we did, so we can quickly select these over here, even when they're embedded inside of other lofts, as I'll demonstrate here in just a moment. Okay, so now we have this in place. We're about ready to do our lofts, as mentioned. So let's go ahead and take a look at our steps off our drawing. So we just did step number 8, creating all of our profile sketches. Step 9 is create the boss, the base bottom, extruded cut using a profile sketch 0 to the top plane. So we're going to go from top plane 0 and extrude that circle down to the top plane, and we're going to check our center of mass. This will tell us if we're doing everything correct. So let's take our profile sketch, which is that circle. And let's just do features, extruded boss space. We're going to go up to surface, and we're going to go over here. We're going to choose top plane. Bang. We got that in place. And let's check our mass properties. If we go to evaluate mass properties, let's go and take our options. We're going to use custom settings. We're going to go up to 3. Take our toggle and go up to the highest. And we should be looking at 12.931, and the Y is going to be off by 1.5 millimeters, which is half the 3 millimeter thickness there. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. So the next one is actually we're going to actually get into the lofts here. This is going to be step 10. Create the base loft using profile sketch 0 and profile sketch 1, and the 2 guide curves, front and back. So let's do that, and we're going to call this our base bottom. I think is what it's called. So we're gonna open that up so we can actually make some selections. So profile sketch 0 is sitting inside of that. So now we're gonna go up to features. We're gonna go to loft, which is this guy, lofted boss space. And we're gonna pick everything out of our feature manager. So we're gonna go ahead and open that up. And we're gonna pick on profile sketch 0, profile sketch 1, and then for our guide curves, we're gonna go ahead and pick our guide front and guide back. So now if you look at that sideways, you can see what it's doing. It's conforming to that. So if we were to take those guides and clear the selections, you can see it kind of is bulging over here with a yellow profile. It's also bulging over here. By putting in those guide curves in there, kind of forces the profiles to stay within the boundaries of the guide curves. I may have said profiles before, but they're actually guide curves. Guide curves keep it contained so that the profiles will, project themselves along that loft along the guide curve. So when we do that, if we go to the green check mark, now we have a part of the base in there. So this is going to be, in regard to that base, it's going to be called the base loft. So let's go ahead and rename that while we're here, and let's check our mass properties. So let's go to evaluate, mass properties, and see what we get. So 26,436 over here for that feature, and that's what we got. Center mass should be actually 0.099, which we have. Y says 3.588, and then Z is 0.0802. Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring that over and take a look at that. This is what we're looking at here. So we're looking at the values over here in our step 10, and they match our mass properties over here. So far we're doing pretty good there. So let's go ahead and call that our base loft. Let's go ahead and save our part, and we'll come right back. Okay, so let's do more. This is really kind of fun. Now that we put all this effort into our sketches, the lofts come together really easy. We're in step number 11. We're going to create our hand loft using profile sketches 1, 2, 3, and 4, and both guide curves. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to have to hunt and peck to try to find those. So let's go up to Features, Lofted Boss Space, and our profiles. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what we can find. And we want to do this in order. So we're going to start with our profile sketch number 1, and pick 2. Oh, not top plane, but 2, 3, we're going to pick sketches, and 4. So we don't get a preview because these direction points in here are kind of all goofed up. But guess what? When we choose our guide curves in here, and we're going to borrow that from our base loft in here, that gets straightened out. So we're going to put 1 in the front. You can see it's conformed to the front, but not to the back, kind of bulging back here. When we click on the back one, bang, that brings it into play. And go to the green check mark. So, this is real easy. So we're going to call this our hand loft. So we're going to rename that real quick. Let's check our mass properties. So evaluate, mass properties, and we're looking at step over here, which is going to be, where did mass properties go? Oh, it's thinking. So step number 11, which is our hand loft, we're looking at a mass of 111.871. Ooh, doesn't look like it's right. So let's try that one more time. Now let's just double check our work over here. So profile sketch 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we should probably let this think and do its thing. So front guide for our guide curve and then a back guide curve. Yeah, so that should be okay. So let's go to mass properties again. So we're off by a little bit. So what I'm going to do, if we take a look at this over here, this is going to be our hand loft. And that's going to be sketch number 11. We're looking at a mass of 111.871. So what did we do wrong? Well, I'm going to find that, and I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. Okay, so I found the error, and I just went back through my profiles. I also checked my profile planes too to make sure we got that correct, which they were. But this is where I made the error. So my profile sketch 3 and 4 seems to be off by a bit. This radius dimension, I just chose the default value that SolidWorks gave me. And that was incorrect. It needs to be 12. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 12. Oh, not 21, 12. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and rebuild that. And our sketch 3, I think, is got the same thing. So I think we're just in sketch 3. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. Sketch 2, profile sketch 2, that should be 12 too. 12 also. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. And I think if we went back and did our mass properties in that should be correct. So let's try that one more time. Go to mass properties. It's thinking. And we're going to go back to our drawing over here to make sure we're looking at the right value. We should be getting, let's see, in step number 11, 111.871. Oh, good, which is what we're getting. Then it's going to be off in center of mass is going to be 0.765 in the X, 43.509 in the Y, and then 3.251 in the Z. So we're looking over here at step number 11. All right, feel pretty confident about that. Let's go ahead and save our work, and we'll come right back. We're going to go ahead and finish this up. Okay, the last loft we're going to do, we're going to do a top rim with a sweep feature. We have to put a sweep in here, of course, since this is the week where we're doing lofts and sweeps. But step number 12 over here, create the finger thumb loft profiles 4 and 5 with both guide curves. So that's pretty easy. And remember, the guide curve over here is going to have that arc in here, that 22 millimeter arc, which is going to exaggerate it. If you try to do a loft without that guide curve in there, you wouldn't be able to get that cut. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to go over here to features, go to loft. And we're looking at profiles 4 and 5, so we're going to have to dig through this to try to find them. And we're going to do this in order. So hand loft is going to have profile 4. And I think profile 5 is just sitting there all by itself. And then our guide curves are going to be front guide and then the back guide. So the front guide kind of takes advantage of that curve in here, but it bulges out in the back. But the back guide kind of brings it back into shape. So if we go to the green check mark over here, let's go to mass properties. So evaluate mass properties. And what we're looking at down here is something that's going to be really close. Should be 1.77.100 grams for the mass. And the center mass is going to be off in the X by 0.483, which we have so far. Now Y is going to be 68.793, which we have too. And the Z is going to be 11.778. So that looks like it works out. So that's going to be down here, step number 12. Step 13 is just going to be a basic sweep, and we will cover that here in just a moment. So make sure you save your work, and we'll be right back. And let's go ahead and rename that loft too. So that loft for step number 12 is going to be finger thumb loft. And don't forget to save your work too. Up. So, yep, fumbling around with the keyboard. There we go. We'll be back. Okay, very simply, we're going to go on the right plane, and we're going to sketch out the slot tool in here, the slot sketch tool. We're going to make a coincident over here. We're going to make a collinear to the top edge up here. It's going to be 3 millimeters wide and an arbitrary dimension of 6.5. It could be really anything because we're actually putting a solid within a solid in here. So let's go do that. Let's see how fast we can do that. We're going to go to the right plane, go normal to that right plane. Let's go to sketch, center point slot, maybe something similar to that, and kind of sketch that out. Up, and then drop that into place. So remember, this is going to go, we want to make sure we don't have that coincident relationship in here. Yeah, that's okay. We're going to have to take this line and that edge. Let's go ahead and make that collinear. Take this point over here, drag that over there, and pick up that coincident relationship. Put in a smart dimension of 6.5. Again, it's kind of arbitrary. You can make that 7 if you want to do that, or something similar. And then between this line and that line, we're going to make that 3 millimeters. Drop that into place, and we're going to go ahead and rebuild that. So we're going to call that our profile. Probably profile sweep would be good, so we can differentiate that from our path. And very simple, we're just going to click on the surface up here, go to Sketch, Convert Entities, Rebuild, and we're going to call this Path Sweep. So this will be our path for our sweep. So we're going to take our profile and our path, go up here to Features, Spot Boss Space, we're going to put that across the top, go to the green check mark, bang, now we have that in place. Let's evaluate our work. Go to Mass Properties, and let's go ahead and bring up our drawing here in just a moment. And for our last step, which is step number 13, we're looking at a mass of 177.960. When this thing finally pops up, and it's still thinking over here. Ooh, yeah, hit it right on. And 481 for the off in the X for the center of mass. And the Y is going to be 69.075, which we have in an 11.883. It is perfect in every way. So there you have it. So that's a decent profile of a kind of a joystick. There's a lot more that goes into a joystick than just this. But a lot of times you start with the design by getting just a basic shape of the design and get that perfected. And one thing about this is we can go in here now that we have this created, and we can go to our design sketch and actually make modifications to it like we did in the very beginning. If we want to make something like this, maybe that a little bit more bulgy. Maybe not in the back, maybe make this 15 millimeter dimension a little bit shorter, maybe even a little bit longer, maybe 17 would be good. So you have a little bit something over here that would sit in the palm of your hand. You could do that. You could change the height of this, maybe 140 on that or 150. It may not be the shape that we're really looking for, but you can change all these dimensions. It really does keep the model intact because of the way we built that. So everything's based off that design sketch. If I try it, and unless you go crazy where you have model lines that are crossing each other and maybe profiles are going to kind of come off the model, it should be a very robust way to model something. So it's called a design sketch or a sketch skeleton at the very top of your feature manager tree. And the premise here is you have sketches that drive feature. Why not have sketches that actually drive parts and ultimately have sketches that drive assemblies? And that's why these things are set up the way they are. Very convenient. It's put a lot of effort into the sketch, but ultimately it's very fast and creates for a very stable model.